Hello, crypto fam, and welcome back to the channel. Sorry for the delay. We've been traveling, but we are back and we are sitting and ready to trade. A couple of things I want to bring up today. We're going to talk about Shiba Inu in this video. We're going to do our long-term analysis that we haven't done in a couple of days here because that's what's going to give us the new direction and sentiment of the market. But most importantly, there are some news articles. They're always going to be fudding or attacking SHIB, and I just want to look at a couple of those here too. So let's get right into it today. So first step, we're going to just do our top-down analysis on SHIB. And what we see on SHIB, and we have been watching this for a while. Obviously, right, we've had these two trend lines, as you guys can see here, and it has been on a downtrend, but it's not alone. BTC was following the exact same sentiment as we can see right here, right? It's had just a huge downturn in the past 90-something days, but it has broken out of its previous resistance. And you know what's awesome? So has SHIB. A little negative though, SHIB is still on the downturn, and we can see that here from this trend line that it's making. And it just needs to break above that for us to feel confident that we're back up in a bull run. But what we do see that is some good news is that this used to be its resistance. And we can see that here, right? You guys, we can see it tapped here. That was resistance. Obviously, this was the top forward resistance. And then down here, it actually has flipped above that resistance zone and has now become its new support. So as long as it stabilizes in that support and doesn't use this for long-term resistance, SHIB has the capability to break through this and pretty much make it back to some of these previous resistance lines that were support previously. And that's the best way to think of the market in the long term. Now, if we want to look at the bearish perspective, what we can assume here is if it fails to break out of any of these here, then what's going to happen is we are going to run right back down to the bottom here, which is bad news for all of us SHIB lovers and holders. And I'm still a long-term holder. This does not change my sentiment on the long-term viability of SHIB. And the reason is because SHIB is a very classical meme coin. It is what started the meme coin run. Yes, Doge is the father, but the mother is what pushes everything forward. And we can see that because when SHIB launched and it had its huge bull run down to here, let's pull it up into the weeks. When it had this massive bull run right here, everything else went parabolic. The entire market did. And most importantly, so did meme coins. So realistically speaking, we've had this entire bear market. It's had this trend line that it did break through. And look, once it broke through, we saw it still found some support down here and then really shot up after that. And I do believe it has the capability to do that again. We're just going to need some good catalysts in the meme coin world, because after the Trump and Melania meme coin, it basically sucked a lot of liquidity out of the market, which is what is negatively impacting us. Now, before we look at BTC, because BTC will decide the general direction of the market, and then we'll do a quick micro look at SHIB and the 30 to the 1 hour mark. But I found some of these articles that are basically telling us that a lot of people are expecting SHIB to surge, right? Now, in this example, it's actually giving me a bear case scenario because it's assuming that 13.7 SHIB is going to be activated. And what it could mean is that these tokens are either going to be burned or they're going to be sold. And what we're waiting to see is what's going to happen with those, because that amount of SHIB could extremely bring the market down if it's sold. Now, another thing is there's another article here stating that SHIB has the capability to ride 7,200%. Am I going to say I believe that? Here's the thing. If we look at this here, that's about a 200% gain from our recent all-time highs. Now, from the one right before that, we've got to move all the way up here to about 277%. And the scary part, for us to get to our previous highs, that's about a 700% gain. I don't understand where they come up with these crazy numbers. That's why I'm not a big fan of all the articles. I want to bring them up all the time because realistically, you guys, the charts are what matter. But fundamentally, if there is some sort of news catalyst that would FUD SHIB, that's when we could see a big move down within the market. Now, when we're looking at the intraday chart, and we're going to bring it down to about the 1 hour mark, we can see here that we have fully stabilized under this trend line. And as long as it can find a way or some sort of catalyst to break above it, we have the capability. And a couple of things to think about. There have been multiple taps on this trend line. We've got this one, right? We've got another two right here, and then we've got three. And realistically speaking, with the fact that the trend line on the top is acting as resistance and we've had 3 taps, we have a higher probability of breaking through this trend line and actually starting hopefully a couple of new highs. And that would break the structure that we're currently in. And it would also be called a change of character. And if those two things occur, we are going to see a mini bull run here for SHIB itself. And this would be a great opportunity for any of us once we see this break and this retest of that previous resistance that was also support would be a great buy opportunity. And I use BTCC. Why? Because you can actually leverage SHIB on BTCC here, and it gives us up to 50x freaking leverage, right? We've got 50x freaking leverage on that bad boy, and that's the key. Now, another thing to think about is BTC, right? And the reason we always want to at least look at BTC is because it controls the entire market and it will impact SHIB. Now, on a macro perspective, for BTC, we had the same exact movement, right? We see here this trend line that it's been following through for so long. And after that trend line break above, just like it did here, we are consolidating in this area, which is roughly the 83 at the lowest point to up to about 86 at that high point. And realistically speaking, this is what we now will call a supply zone, right? So as long as BTC does the same thing and has the capability to get above that previous resistance, then we for sure could see BTC ride all the way up to even 95, because this is a fair value gap that it has the chance to fill again and here, right? So those are the two things that I'm kind of looking for here. I'm looking for a break of structure and change of character and some new highs being made from its recent lows. And realistically speaking, once we see that occur, we have the capability to see SHIB reach anywhere up to the 0.0001795 or even the 0.0001964. Here's a big thing to think about though. In regards to the market right now, there is a lot of negative sentiment just because we are waiting to see what's going to politically occur in the United States. That's probably one of the biggest catalysts that tend to determine market movement. So that's something to think about, you guys. Just be cautious and patient within the market, because right now there's a lot of uncertainty. And when there's this much uncertainty, we're not going to be shooting for a bunch of longs. We're going to wait until we get some confirmations. Okay. And one more thing. Do not forget to check out the BTCC link below. They are still giving $10,000 deposit bonuses as long as you guys follow the rules, and they still have their Tesla Cybertruck giveaway. So use that to your advantage. The link is below. And it's very, very simple to trade on there. I've got some video guides on the channel, so be sure to check those out. But just best advice I've got for you guys the next day or two, keep watching the market and let's see if we see some breakouts occur. We'll make more videos like this, really focused on TA and some of the general fundamental news on SHIB. SHIB is one of my most favorite tokens and always will be, no matter what occurs in the next couple of weeks to months, because SHIB is an important aspect of the meme coin world. All right. I hope today's video helped you guys. Do me a favor, click that subscribe button, click that like button, and share this to another SHIB lover just like you and me. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, be cautious on the market and do not just enter random positions. Thanks, everyone. Peace.